Aftermath Life Debt has just been released, so it's time to review it and then tear it apart for new information. This video will start spoiler-free, but then I'm gonna get into my top 10 moments from the novel, which will be full of spoilers. I'll make sure to give you plenty of warning there. Let me preface this review by saying that I was one of the seemingly few that enjoyed the first Aftermath, but I thought Life Debt was far superior. The main story is way more expansive, involving trips to planets new and old. The fun interludes from the first book return, and in many cases build off the previous ones. With Empire's End out in January, I expect some of the interludes could be tiny little trilogies. Most of the characters from the first book return, and we get more from Han, Leia, Chewie, Wedge, Mon Mothma, and more classic characters. Chuck Wendig also does a really great job of pulling in other canon material like the comics, and hints at stories we'll probably see in the future. All in all, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I tore through it in about 3 days, and I am not the fastest reader in the world. It just feels like a proper Star Wars book to me. More epic, galaxy spanning. It reminded me a lot of the way Legends books used to be. Okay, now on to some spoilers. If you haven't read the book and you plan to, stop now. If you just want to know the big takeaways, I'm going to go into my top 10 moments from the book, which will include major plot points, Easter eggs, connections, and more. Basically, the most important galaxy-affecting pieces from this book. First up, I'm going to talk about the prologue and the epilogue. They both take place 30 years before the main story, which would set them before the Clone Wars, but after Palpatine has been named Chancellor. We learn the story of Gallius Rex, who will be revealed as the mysterious Fleet Admiral from the end of the first Aftermath. As a child, he stowed away on an Imperial ship to escape his homeworld of Jakku, but not before witnessing some droids setting up some sort of excavation. The ship takes him directly to the Emperor on his ship, the Imperialis, which you might remember from the Lando comic. Palpatine senses greatness in the boy, and offers him a bright future if he guards the excavation on Jakku. Palpatine also says that spot is and has been precious to the galaxy. The droids will excavate and then build something underground. Piecing together bits from the first Aftermath, Yup Tashu mentions that Palpatine placed beacons on the edges of the Outer Rim, seeking the origin of the dark side, and Yup actually appears at the construction site. I imagine the droids are building one of those beacons. But why is Jakku precious? There are hints that the planet wasn't always a wasteland. I expect we'll learn more in Empire's End, which will detail the Battle of Jakku. I'm already seeing videos and blog posts claiming that Rax is Snoke. I don't think that that's true at all. While some things like his age line up, I didn't get the impression that he was Force sensitive. And yes, he was old enough to watch the Empire rise and fall, but I get the impression that Snoke is much older than 60 or 70. I think Rax was just a willing servant used by Palpatine on his search for the origin of the dark side. Rax might be involved with Snoke in some way, but I don't believe that he himself is Snoke. I think he's the main antagonist of the Aftermath trilogy, and will be dead by the end of the next book. Second, let's talk about Rey Sloan, because she's awesome. I've likened her to Admiral Pellaeon from Legends before, and that comparison still holds up. She's a mostly honorable Imperial officer that truly believes in the stability the Empire brings. Throughout the new canon, we've seen almost her entire life, from childhood to present. Her motivations are clear, and she's basically a protagonist of this book. Through her, we see the Empire changing for the worse under Rax's influence. She admits that the Empire wasn't perfect, but I believe Sloan is witnessing the transition of the Empire into the First Order, and what she sees scares her. Speaking of the First Order, my third talking point is Rax's Shadow Council. He brings together a number of military minds to form new leadership for the remaining Empire. They are his puppets. In fact, it appears that Rax has been pulling strings for quite some time. It's hinted that he was even manipulating Count Vidian from A New Dawn. Sloan is among the Shadow Council, but more importantly, so is Brindle Hux. We already know about his philosophies from Servants of the Empire, and his wish to indoctrinate children. That is touched upon quite a bit. Systems still under Imperial control are commanded to reproduce, seemingly for the purpose of creating children that can be trained from birth just like we see in The Force Awakens. We also learn that General Hux from the film is a bastard, and that his first name is Armitage. Staying on the Imperial side of things, the fourth thing I want to talk about is Masa Mita. He gets more screen time than he's ever had before, which is kind of frustrating considering I just did a video on the guy. We learn that after the death of Palpatine, he's nothing more than a figurehead of the Empire, a recognizable face with no real power. He attempts to surrender to the New Republic and they won't even take him. So he remains basically in house arrest on Coruscant, which is in the midst of civil war. In fact, the Empire's military has straight up abandoned their capital, and the only defenses in place are set up by the Imperial Security Bureau. Amita considers suicide, but gets a visit from Sloan, and they decide to team up against Rax. Fifth, Sloan does some digging into the Empire's forces. We learn that there were at one point 13 Super Star Destroyers in their fleet, and she confirms that the Ravager is the only one left. Or is it? She finds some inconsistencies with records involving the Emperor's personal Super Star Destroyer, and what's it called? The Eclipse. That's right, the Eclipse is now canon, at least in name. We have yet to actually see it, but I can't imagine that it won't pop up in Empire's End. Sixth, we get another interlude about the Acolytes of the Beyond from the first Aftermath. Again, I think it's likely that they are the precursors to the Knights of Ren. This story takes place in a police station that shares a lockup with a neighboring museum. The Acolytes infiltrate the prison lockup and steal a red lightsaber. I have a feeling the lightsaber is from the museum and is probably very old. The Acolytes as a whole seem to be gaining speed. They were non-violent in the first book, but they've definitely changed their tune here. They still idolize Vader, and they wear masks which have to be earned. The chapter overall was very creepy. Okay, I've been focusing a lot on the Empire and the darker side of things, so seventh, let's talk about our main heroes, Luke, Han, and Leia. We learn that Han and Leia got married on Endor shortly after the battle. In Legends, it took them years to get married and have kids. Now it took them a few minutes, and it wasn't long after that before they got pregnant. Luke did not stick around for long. He went missing according to Leia, but I imagine he's just off visiting Jedi temples, something he promised he would do in Weapon of a Jedi. Or maybe he's searching for Force-sensitive beings. At any rate, we know he'll return before too long. Before he left, he taught Leia a few basic Force techniques, which she practices. The focal point of her practice is a small sapling of a tree growing from a seed that was given to her by Wicket, which is adorable. During one of her sessions, she senses her unborn baby and learns that it's a boy. Eighth, I want to discuss the state of the New Republic. It's having somewhat of a rocky transition from rebellion to government. With a Senate in place, there's bureaucracy and things move much slower, which causes Han, Leia, Chewie, and Admiral Akbar to become frustrated with the situation on Kashyyyk and similarly enslaved planets. With people to answer to, they can't simply play the hero and attack the Empire when and where they please. However, the New Republic is still making efforts. Notably, they're capturing Imperial ships, dismantling them, and rebuilding them into a new capital ship called the Nadiri Starhawk. Those might be the ships we see very briefly in The Force Awakens above Hosnian Prime. Additionally, they're working to help other refugees from the war like the surviving Alderaanians. Avon from the Princess Leia comic has a substantial role, and the New Republic sends them supplies to create a new space station for their home. Those supplies are actually pieces from the destroyed Death Star. Back to Kashyyyk, that's number 9. We get a lot of information on the slavery of Wookiees. They each had inhibitor chips implanted into their heads that could cause pain or death. They sound a lot like the chips Anakin mentions in The Phantom Menace. The entire planet was filled with work camps of Wookiees. They were tortured, forced to breed, and hunted for sport by the local Grand Moff. But of course, by the end of the book, Han, Chewie, and more have successfully liberated them all. And the fighting sounds like what the Battle of Endor would have been like with Wookiees instead of Ewoks. Also, if it were rated R. Stormtroopers lose their arms, heads, and are straight up ripped in half. It's nuts. We also learn of a place on the planet the Wookiees call the Black Forest. This area is dead and has been for thousands of years. It was scarred by some dark event. Right now we don't know what that is, but it's very intriguing. Finally, number 10. Boba Fett's armor makes a reappearance on Tatooine. Combining some information from the first book, we have a much clearer picture of the story so far. The Sarlacc was injured in the explosion of the sail barge. Some of it unearthed, and Jawas cut into it so they could scavenge. That would explain how Fett's armor was on a sandcrawler in the first book. But where is Fett? Was he dead or unconscious and they just took his armor? Again, in the first book, a local lawman purchases the armor, and now he seems to be using it to keep the peace in his town. This is complete speculation on my part, but what if that's Fett? What if he's turning over a new leaf? Or maybe Fett is dead after all, and the armor will live on in his legacy. I have a feeling, or I at least hope, Empire's End will answer some of those questions. Anyway, those are my top 10 moments from Aftermath Life Debt. What do you think of them? Did I skip something you think was important? Do you have any more questions? Let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, keep an eye out for another Life Debt video coming soon. I'm planning on covering even more of the connections and details revealed in the new book. Until then, make sure to like, subscribe, and share to see new Star Wars videos every weekday. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.